Hello, welcome. It's exactly 4 weeks since I did my original report, which was about hospital admissions in England and how it had reached a turning point in the middle of August and number of daily admissions was starting to rise. I'm going to do a more detailed breakdown now using a dataset where we see the different regions across England, and I'm going to go to the NHS website, download the Excel spreadsheet where they provide it on a daily basis. So once data's open, I'm just going to take a quick copy and put the data into a new tab whereby I can then start analysing the data. So copy the data, paste it into a new sheet. And first off, I'm going to do the norm, which is adding a 7-day rolling average. I could choose to use different time periods for hospital admissions. Some people do it for 3 days or 5 days, but I'm going to stick with 7 days for now. And I'm going to just grey out the cells where I can't calculate an average because I need the 3 days either side of the value. So the formula is the average of the 7 cells above it. That's 6 cells, 7 cells there. And I'm just going to paste that same formula into the other cells. So I'll ignore the warning that it's not using all of the adjacent cells. So we now have our daily average for the regions. I'm going to take the population sizes for each region, which I acquired from the ONS. I'll paste those into the sheet and I'm going to calculate the number of daily admissions per million people in each of the regions. So that is the number of admissions divided by the number of million people. I want to keep that using column D throughout the sheet. Can again paste the same formula to all the other cells. I'll do this to 2 decimal places. So now we're seeing the number of daily admissions. Now I'm aware you may not be able to see the data clearly, so I'm just going to zoom in here, and I'm also going to freeze the panes so that we can see the titles. View, freeze panes at that point. So now we can see very clearly that the hotspots for hospital admissions are in the north, the northeast and the northwest. We've got 16 per million in the northeast, 22 per million in the northwest. So if we do a quick chart of that, and we can see it visually how the different regions compare. If I just take a copy of that, I'll put it into a new sheet, which is England. If I enlarge that a little bit so that it's clear to see. So we can clearly see that in green we got the northwest, who have the most daily admissions, and that's been accelerating over time. We've got the northeast in light blue. We've got the England average in dark blue. The Midlands is close to the English average. We've got London, which is slightly beneath the average, and then we've got the other 3 regions, east of England, south west and the south east. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start calculating the growth rates for these regions, because that gives a little more insight into what's really happening. So the formula is going to be, so I'll just copy those grey cells, and the formula is current week divided by the previous week and then subtracting 1. I'll paste that formula into all the other cells and show it as a percentage to 2 decimal places. Now this fluctuates week on week, so it's worth creating a rolling average over the top of that as well. And I'm going to put the data into a new table beneath. Again, I can't do it for all the data cells because you need 3 values either side of it. So I'm just going to grey out those cells so it's clear that we're not working with them, and then I'm going to put the average in for each of these cells. So that's 4 cells, 5, 6, 7 cells. And copy and paste the same formula to all of the other cells. So what we now have is the 7-day average for the growth rate for each of the regions. Currently the northwest and northeast, being the hotspots, have growth rates of about 6 or 8%. The other regions Many of them are about 3 or 4% the last couple of days. There are some which are growing more rapidly, including the southwest, which for the last couple of days has been 14, 16 and 15%. So let's start looking at these visually to see if there's any kind of a trend. So what I'm going to start with, I'm just going to select all of the regions and I'm going to create a template. So I'm just going to paste a graph into this table here. So I'm going to insert chart, which is line chart, like so. This is going to be a little cluttered to be interpreting on its own, but I'm going to just format it and then I'm going to copy and paste the same data into additional worksheets. So the label I want down at the bottom. The axis on the left needs to be in a format the axis, so the number needs to be a percentage, and that is going to be my template chart, and I'm just going to give it a quick title, which will be daily growth rate for hospital admissions, like so. So let's start with the north. So if I paste that as starter, and if we remove the regions that we don't want, I don't want the southwest, southeast, I don't want the Midlands, London or the east of England. And I'm going to have to change the colours of one of these because it's difficult to distinguish between the two blues. So I need to select the one I'm going to change, just change that to an orangey brown colour. So we've got the England average in blue, and we've got the northwest in green, and we've got the northeast in orange. You can clearly see that the northeast and northwest are following the English average. That's not entirely surprising because they are basically dictating the growth in the UK, being the largest number of hospitalisations. But if we look onto Midlands and London next, paste the graph, let's get rid of the other data that we don't want involved. So we're going to remove the northern regions, so the northwest and northeast. I'm also going to get rid of the southwest, the southeast and the east. So what we've now got, again, we can see the England average in blue, we can see that London in grey and the Midlands in yellow are roughly following the same trend. They do vary a bit more because the values they're based on are smaller on a daily basis. As the numbers increase, that'll become a smoother line, but it's basically been following the same pattern as the north. And my interpretation of this is that this is some kind of national phenomena that is dictating the change in the growth rate. This might be to do with seasonal effects, or it might be something to do with people going back to school, to university, to work, or changes in national restrictions. So the final three areas that we can look at are the ones who are currently at the bottom of this graph. So it's the southeast, the southwest and the east of England. So I'm just going to create one more tab for those, and I'm going to call that the others. Paste in the template. As before, we will remove the northern regions, so northwest and northeast can go, the Midlands and London can go. So now what we're left with is southwest, southeast and east of England. Now it's a bit harder on this one to see that they're following the national average. You could perhaps say that the southwest is following it quite closely, although it does oscillate, and that's because of a small number of daily hospital admissions. But it's more difficult to see it for the east of England or the south east. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the England average, and what we can see is that they're still above zero. Here's the line, the zero. All the time it's above zero, it's basically growing, and that's fluctuating. It's just kind of oscillating, averaging around about 5%. So let's have a look at the actual values that we're working with. So this is my actual data tab here. And let's see what the averages are for the month of September. So we're just going to take the average for the 30th of September back to the 1st of September. Like so. That's the English average, and then we've got the regional averages. I'm just going to highlight the regions which are causing us greatest concern at the moment, which are in the north. They're growing at 7% per day, 6% per day. The other regions are also growing at about 5-6% per day, with the exception of the southeast, which, although at the moment it's showing about 3% for the month of September, it is actually increasing over the last few days. It's gone 6%, 7%, 10%. So that may fall in line with the other ones. Now, if we were to take an approximation and say what happens if you increase the number of admissions by 6% per day, what happens after 7 days, 14 days, 21 days and 28 days? So simple formula for this is 100%, which is 1, plus the growth rate to the power of, and then the number of days that we're going to be growing for. That formula wants to use row 61, so hence the dollar. So if I just copy and paste that to the lines beneath, I'll reduce the number of decimal places so we can read it. So after 7 days, if you have a growth rate of 6% day on day, you will see 1.5 times the number of hospital admissions on a daily basis. After 14 days, it would be just over 2 times as high as the starting number. 3 weeks, it would be 3 times as high. 4 weeks, it's 5 times as high as the current values. Now, the reason that is cause for concern is if we go back to the government's dashboard and we look how many hospital admissions we were seeing in April time when we saw the original peak, we were seeing about 2,500, 3,000 hospital admissions per day here in England. And we're now seeing 500 per day. If I was to look at the daily figures, you can see that 3 days in the last 4 we've had 500 admissions, or over 500 admissions. Now if we start with 500 admissions and we go back to the spreadsheet and we say in 4 weeks time that might be multiplied by 5, you're then talking about 2,500 admissions per day, which is basically back to where we were in April. Now clearly the government's not going to want that to happen to the hospitals, and hence we're going to see some new restrictions coming in very shortly. It's a 3-tier system. I would suspect that the northern regions, especially the cities most affected, are going to see the strictest restrictions, but we will see what's announced tomorrow, and hopefully that can bring these numbers into check, because it's just the start of the winter. So hopefully that's given an insight into the differences across the UK and, well, England, and for that matter how they are similar in some ways as well. So that's it from me. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, then please press the like button, subscribe if you'd like to see future videos, and hopefully see you in the future. Bye for now.